Mike Cooper. I've been coaching for roughly a long time now, probably 20 odd years. It's a huge passion. It's my life passion. It's definitely what I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing. I've had the opportunity and the experience of community right through to professional, from club to international. And right now, in the recent years, I've been working with the Joeys, but also coaching my daughter's under 10 grade D team. So a vast range of experience. And when I was asked to pick a topic, I kind of always feel when it comes to coaching, what are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve? How are we going to make a difference to these young people, and how are we going to get them to enjoy the game? So I wanted to keep it really, really simple. And I just thought, let's just talk about what makes a session fun. Because at the end of the day, if that's an outcome that we can achieve, then that can only help long-term participation, long-term love of the game, and who knows what that might turn into. But let's just start with that one core principle of how do we make a session fun. So when I posed the question to Chris, I kind of, obviously tried to make the key points really simple. As you can see, my first point is to try and meet the needs of the players in front of you. So, I don't know each of your individuals' context, but say you are the last person to stand up and say, I'm going to coach, or you've been coaching for a couple of years, or maybe someone on here has been coaching at a high level. I think this question is relevant to every one of you. So if you could ask this question whilst I'm kind of explaining my thoughts, and just reflect quite deeply without going forward into session content, just think, what are the needs of the players that I have in front of me? Individually, why are they there? Why are they turning up to your session? Why have their parents sent them? Why have they potentially spent some money on registration? Really try and ask yourself what their needs are, because I think that's the first step to try and get some meaningful content delivered. So when I break that down personally, I think you've got to take into consideration their age. That's a big one, and the detail around the age will be things like, where are they at with their physical maturation? Where are they at with their maturity? And then kind of their stage of football development. Are they a beginner? Have they got some experience? And what's their motivation to play? And this presentation is more kind of focused on the community, lower age, 8 to 12, beginning or second year, third year experience. So the most of the examples I'm going to give are around that age, but I still think it's a relevant question for all of you to question and to think about. And one of the key things that always comes up in coaching is how do you get to know your players? So maybe it's worth facilitating some sort of process, or a little, I don't want to say a meeting to a young person, but just a conversation, and ask them, get to know them. Why are they there? What do they love about football? Why do they want to play it? And I'm guessing some of your answers are going to be that they like scoring goals, they like the game, they like being part of the team. If that's the case, then that's the type of sessions you need to put on. As simple as that, because, if you're meeting the needs of that beginner player, your main goal is that they fall in love with the game. If you want them to fall in love with the game, then you need to deliver sessions that match why they're there. So really, really important to ask that question. And the way that kind of the next step of that I've always done, regardless of level, to be honest, but especially with my daughter's under 10s, is to involve them in the design process. So I put them through some sessions that I think are fun, but I will observe whether their behavior is showing me that they're finding it fun. And you all know when a child is out there having fun. They look free, they're energetic, they've obviously got a smile on their face, they're fully actively involved in that whole process. So obviously they're signs to you that session's working. But then also you can ask them, why do you like that? What is it about tagging game, for example, that they like? Is it the fact that they like the ball at their feet more often than not? Is it that they have an opportunity to score? Is it just that they're playing games? And once you've got those answers, that's then how you can plan your sessions around those answers. So to give you a couple of examples, you know, I've invited some of the girls to have a warm up, which would be fun, which would be a game-based challenge, things that they would do in, if they were left on their own, it was probably something they would organize themselves in a playground. And then after that, kind of say, well, you know, today maybe what should we work on? And they would come up with something, and then take that to the next layer. Okay, I've got an idea around that. Do you want to try that? So you get the buy-in. And then during that, you can even say to them, is this working? Other rules need to change? Do we need to do anything? You'll be pretty amazed, regardless of level, how much awareness they have of how to change things to meet their needs. Because if you think about it, if you watch, you know, even at school here, if you watch them in playtime, they're coming up with these games rules. They will make it fair to each other. They will have a natural kind of will to make it inclusive to everybody. And if it's not working, they'll change it. If it's not working in their social kind of being with each other, they'll find a solution. So don't be afraid of asking the question and involving them in that process. And through that process, I guarantee you'll get a better understanding of why they turn up. You get a better understanding of what their needs are for that specific group. And you'll be able to have so much fun yourself, because the session will feel energetic. It will feel like the time's just going away. And then before you know it, the session's done. And, you know, a big outcome for me with my girls team was I've stopped and the girls carry on. They're then doing something else, and the mums are trying to get them to go home, but the girls are still playing. You know, that they're good signs to know that you're meeting the needs of each person. So I think that would be the first question that I ever ask myself, and take time to ask that question. Take time to get to know the players, and be comfortable to do some sessions where you don't really have it planned and you're quite open to changing it, and involve them in that process. So don't feel you have to turn up and have the perfect session plan written down. Work with them through it, and then have the courage to put those things in place. My second key message with you know, what makes a session fun is, more often than not, from my experience, again, regardless of level, if you keep the game intact, more often than not, your players are obviously having fun. But what does that actually mean? And how do we keep the game intact but still have some learning and still have some development? So my first kind of question is, you know, how do you keep the game at its purest? Well, the absolute purest of the game is that it has goals, and it's an invasion sport, and we're trying to invade the other team's space to score a goal, and we're trying to stop the other team to invade our space and concede a goal. So if those elements are part of any part of your session for as long as possible, that is probably going to be a fun session. Now, the danger with that is that we just turn up and play a game and we stand on the side, and everything's okay. We probably need to take it to another level, and we probably need to think a little bit more deeper. So then the kind of thinking that I would encourage is, okay, we've got the game. How do I change the way they score? So you could have more than one goal. You could have the goals in corners. You could have change goals to a target person. You could change the size of the field. There's many different ways that you could kind of change it. But then within that, the other good question to ask yourself is, how do I change what the challenge is? So the challenge in football, obviously, is to score more goals than the other team. Now, in terms of each session, you might be able to create different challenges within that session to encourage some learning opportunities. So it might be a simple thing that you have identified that your team play together because they're friends, and the parents have got them there because they want them to play a team sport. So you could put some challenges around the kind of outcome of being a good team player whilst playing the game of football. So you could have a game of football set up, and you could ask your team to have a quick little huddle, have a quick little chat. How can you get everybody involved in this game? And they could have a chat around that. They might say, well, we need to all touch the ball, or we need to all try and pass it, or everyone's got to try and score, or everyone gets a different chance of a different position. So that's encouraging communication, teamwork, and they're having ownership of what their plan is to play the game and try and score goals. So that's just one example how you could do teamwork and maybe communication. If you have a different level and you're trying to improve passing, you could literally just have the goals in the four corners, and you can encourage them to pass into space. The goals in the corners obviously mean that there's two different directions that you can score in, and more often than not, one of them will have space in front of it. And as a coach, you're just asking them in a team, how do we move the ball to the spare space? They could have a little conversation around what that looks like. And they will work out that if they pass the ball towards that space, they got more chance of scoring. Again, I'll take it back to my girls under 10s. To get that message across, I sometimes have to stop the game, pick the ball up, and they play football netball, and they try and move the ball to the spare space, and they obviously do it better because of the skill levels there to catch and throw, and they get lots of success. And then we just ask them, what was different, and put the ball back down, and sure enough, you see somebody moving into space. You see somebody trying to make that pass. Doesn't always come off, but the challenge that I've set is helping them learn. They're still having fun. They're still trying to score goals. So that's an example of how you might improve a challenge of passing whilst keeping the game intact. You could have a field with 2 goals on either side of the pitch and 2 goals on the other side. So it's 4 goals, but there's almost 2 pitches, and each team has 2 goals that they can score into. So that's naturally going to increase the number of scoring opportunities. So you might want to set a challenge to your team to strike the ball into the goal with speed, a bit more power behind the ball. So to do that, you obviously need opportunities and some repetition. But rather than coming away from the game and practice that, you can do that within the game. So the game's intact, they're trying to score, they're trying to stop their other team score. But they've got more opportunities to score, so there's more likely that they're going to get a chance to try and shoot with power. You might, have a goalkeeper in there to increase the challenge. You might not. So there's different ways that you can create challenges to keep it fun, but the game's intact. There's still goals, there's still invasion, there's still 2 teams, they're still trying to score, they're still trying to protect. And I could go on and on and on and on and on with many different ideas. And quite often you will get some very good resources. And it's just looking at that one activity and then just thinking, how can I just change it a little bit to keep the game going, keep the energy going, keep the purpose of the game is there. But how do I just change it a little bit to get them focusing on something? The something comes from knowing the needs of your players. Like I said, it could be a communication, it could be teamwork, it could be passing, it could be shooting, it could be dribbling, it could be a number of things. And you just got to come up with a little idea of how to just put a little challenge within the game. And sure enough, you will have high activity, high involvement, lots of fun, and there's a little bit of learning going on in there because they've got some individual challenges. The other kind of tip or hint with this one is the challenge doesn't always have to be for the whole group. Most of us will have probably a mixed ability group in front of us. You could have a game playing, but you've got individual challenges for each different player. You could even ask them what they want to work on. Within that game, they might be working more on their passing. So you could have individual challenges as well as team challenges. And that will make them focus that will make them feel that they're getting more out of the session, which ultimately means they're going to turn up again next week because they've had fun, they've had something to focus on, and they've had something to learn. And they've probably also, during that process, built a very good relationship with you because you're having that communication, you're building that relationship, and they feel valued by you. So overall, if you can keep the game intact more often than not and keep it real, but be clever about how you create challenges, you're doing well there, because that will be a fun session. And linking it back to the slide before, if you can involve them in that process, honestly, that would be a great outcome for you. Okay, so far we've kind of thought what makes a session fun, then kind of involving them in the process and getting to know our players and identifying what that is, then kind of designing sessions that really keep the game intact. And now it's, whilst you're observing that and that great atmosphere and a great environment that you've created with your players, it's then looking for what are the learning opportunities and how do you make the most out of them. Coaching as you go up through the levels, a lot of it is about the quality of feedback and the difference that you're making for that young person. So the learning opportunities are little golden moments, and then it's just being able to observe and make the most of those moments. And depending on the level, there's many different tips and hints that you might do, but for this purpose of this presentation and keeping it focused around that community beginner to intermediate level, my key tips and key messages are: keep the feedback positive. More often than not, you probably find out with your first question that they are there because they enjoy the game. Hopefully they're wearing a shirt that they've seen a star player, not a West Ham shirt, but they've seen a star player that they really like, and they've come to training to try and be like that player. So the last thing that they want is to receive some negative feedback. It might be some feedback that helps them improve, and it might be some feedback around something that they need to do better, but I'd really challenge you to do it in a positive way. There's lots and lots of psychology and research around positive communication and positive feedback and having a positive approach for young people, but I don't think I need to kind of justify why I say that in the current situation in life with everything. The players that are going to come to your sessions for 2022, they're coming because they love the game and they want to have fun. They probably need human beings around them that are going to be positive and build them up and make that whole experience great, because the last thing you want to do after being in lockdown for so long is to have somebody over you that's making you think in a negative way about yourself. This comes back down to why do people play sport, and to the core question of what's fun. If a coach is giving me feedback in a positive way and trying to help me, that links to fun. Being negative is really not going to help. So during those sessions where you've got it going, can you really reinforce the key messages that you're trying to get across in a positive way? So that might just be coaching on the run. One of your players might be moving into space. They might not get the ball, but they've moved into space. And if that's something that you're working on, hey, whatever their name is, great, you've moved into space, big thumbs up, big smile. All of those things are positive reinforcements. So it's not just the words, it's the way you say it, it's the body language, it's everything around that. And they will feel good about that. And that's a learning opportunity, because they might move into space the next time and actually receive the ball. If they did, that might be a moment to stop the practice and very quickly, because you don't want to stop the practice for long at this age, very quickly, so-and-so moved into space. They've done it twice now. Excellent. And so-and-so passed the ball to them. And look, we're now close to the goal. That's a great outcome. Well done, everybody. Get going again. And the next time they do it, they might get it wrong. Just let that happen. Let that happen. Just try and pick the moments where you can reinforce a real positive message linked to what you're trying to achieve in a session. What you're trying to achieve in the session will come back to the first question. What are the needs of the players that are in front of me? It might just be as simple as they understand the rules of the game and they try and score in the correct goal and try and defend in the correct goal, and they don't run off the pitch. That might be your starting point. But when they do those things, positively reinforce it. Well done, fantastic, that was good. And that will really try and help that behavior to understand what's required, and they learn and they take that on and build from there. The other key point is hidden learning. And again, that's linked to the slide before. If you're designing a session where the game's intact, there's learning happening. There's lots and lots of things happening. You know, you could literally step back and let it roll, and some individuals there will be learning things that you're not particularly aware of. It's just happening. The idea would be that you create opportunities where there's learning within your session. It might not be something that you say, or it might not be something that you really explicit around. But for the example earlier, if you change the size of the field and you've got a large field with lower numbers, space is already created. That is naturally going to allow some players to identify that. Okay, so that's hidden learning. Some players on that field might identify that the space is there, therefore I'm going to run with the ball into the space. Fantastic. You don't need to point it out. You can reward it, but you don't need to say that that's what we're working on. But some players out there will run with the ball more when the pitch is bigger. Some players will work out that, well, actually, the ball moves quicker if I pass it. So they might pass the ball into the space more. You might get that player, like I mentioned earlier, that stands into space. The space is already there. They don't have to find it. They're there. So just by changing the size of the field, you're creating lots of hidden learning moments. And at this age and at this development stage, that's okay. It's just that every session you do, you don't want to play on that size field. The next session, you might want to change it. You might want to squeeze it in. Okay, there's different hidden learning now. It's a small pitch. They can't run with the ball. If they dribble with the ball and get success, great. But if they dribble the ball in a tight area and lose possession of the ball, then they've got a learning moment. The passing opportunities will decrease if the size is smaller. So there's lots of things that they have to think about, and that naturally they're going to learn, and they're coming here because of they want to play the game. And if playing the game is scoring goals, if they're not getting success with that, then they're naturally going to learn. And you can just do something as simple as stop, drinks break, have a think about how that game went. When you come back, just tell me something that you're going to try and improve on. And they will have something. They will have something because they know that the outcome of the game is what it is, and they want to contribute to that. You might want to go for a really wide pitch. Now, a really wide pitch creates space, which is fantastic. And some players will identify that and use it, whether they run with the ball or whether they pass with the ball or whether they move with the ball. But once they've got there, now they've got to come back in towards the goal. So that creates another problem, another opportunity to learn. So how do they deal with that? So all these different ways of changing the game is going to create hidden learning opportunities. And if you are aware of them and you can positively give feedback to individuals, that they're called key learning moments for me. They're gold moments. Now, like I said earlier, you probably got a mixed ability group. Each person's hidden learning and each person's positive feedback is probably different to the other person. So, you know, I don't go to my girls' sessions and say, tonight we're working on this one thing, because I think there's lots of things that are happening all the time. So when they happen, you know, I might be praising somebody in my group. These are real examples, actually. I'm actually thinking it now. It's making me smile. I would be giving some feedback, positive feedback to some certain girls in the group, literally about being involved and helping their team and being physically active. So if you've turned up to a sport, well, let's get some physical activity in. Let's get you involved. So if we can get you from walking to jogging to running, you know, that's a massive positive hidden learning moment for her. Now, I might deliver that to her one-on-one quietly, so I don't want to make that a big thing. Whereas there's another girl that's really tries to move the ball to space. She's understood, and she's understood that that's a good thing for her team. So when she does that, I really become positive and make sure everybody hears that message. Because if all of us can do that on the weekend, we got more chance of moving the ball to space, more chance of moving the ball towards the goal, more chance of goal scoring opportunities. A big one in the girls' football is their weight of pass. So if I see somebody really care about their weight of pass, again, that's a learning opportunity. I'm extremely positive to everyone. Depending on the girl that it is, I might stop and make her feel good. Some might not like that, so I might not do that. But if they really care about their weight of pass in that particular under 10 age group, I really reward that positively, because taking care of their pass is taking care of their friend. They take care of their friend, and then they can move. There's more chance of us getting 2 passes together. If we can get 2 passes together, we might move closer to the goal. So one week we worked on, I had a particular game. One of the challenges within the game was to make consecutive passes, but I still rewarded scoring a goal higher. So they had to try and move the ball to the goal. And then obviously my positive feedback and hidden learning moments were recognizing when somebody moved into space, recognizing when somebody made a good pass, recognizing when they had 2 passes or 3 passes and moved closer to the goal. If that all happens and they scored a goal, believe me, this links to the next slide, my energy would go through the roof. I might even break into a jog, and I'll celebrate with them because that's gold. And then on the weekends, some of the siblings, I had them counting how many passes they did, and the challenge was at half time. It's boys against girls in our league up here. At half time, I'm just going to let you know how many passes you've made, and how many would you like to make? And they all say these crazy numbers. And then at half time, they come in and say, how many passes did we make? You know, they were losing the game against a boys' team, but they were interested in how many passes they made. Oh, you made this many. Next half, how many should we make? And then them just committing to that challenge in the second half, not only continued that learning of passing the ball and working together and moving into space, but it helped them not get down about losing a game against boys who were physically better. It helped them continue to be physically active for the whole game. It helped them leave that field after those 25 minutes with a smile on their face. They felt like they've achieved something, and the parents have given them a real pat on the back because they've really tried to work together as a team, and they set themselves a goal and they achieved it. And the scoreline was gone; it was irrelevant. So that's just an example of how you can build positive feedback and hidden learning moments related to the second slide about keeping the game intact and creating different challenges, which relates back to understanding your players and knowing your players from slide 1. So my last message is a simple one for what makes the sessions fun, and hopefully it's kind of come out in the previous key messages, but what makes a session fun is ultimately you. And this is why I said at the start why I'm so passionate about coaching. I really believe that the person in front of these young people has a huge effect on their upbringing, and I don't think we can underestimate the potential positive effect or the potential negative effect that we have on young people. So this one really is down to you, and I'd really ask you to reflect on how conscious you are about being the coach that you wish you had. So that's a really good reflection question. So I'll say it again. How can you be the coach that you wish you had? For me, I'm a big believer in energy and enthusiasm. I often talk about finding ways to light the fire in myself. So, you know, after a long day's work and driving to coach the under 10s D girls team, on that journey, how do I find the fire in myself to allow me to be the person that they need me to be for that 45 minutes? They don't need to know about my day. They don't need to know about what's happening in my life. They don't need to know about all those things. They need me to be what they need me to be. So therefore, I need a little self-reflection step before I get there, and I need to turn up my energy dial, and I need to turn up my enthusiasm dial, because I want to mirror. So if you think about the mirror analogy, I want them to have a fire in their belly. I want them to be energetic. I want them to be enthusiastic. I want them to have fun. So they need to see that in me. So a big one is the reflection of, you know, the energy that you bring across will be the energy that you get back. So even from my arrival, I would have little ways that I would speak to people to get them excited, or I would throw the ball out and see what happens, or I would ask them to put cones out, or, you know, be involved in that process just to do a little check of what their enthusiasm and energy is. And then I can tailor the start of my session. Do I need to be, you know, jokey, and do I need to actually accelerate it into something that's going to get them going? And then your enthusiasm throughout. So does that show in your body language? Does that show in where you walk around? Does it show in the way that you talk? If you're low in energy and low enthusiasm, then the session normally matches that, and it just pitters out. And then comes the disengagement of the players, which then comes to then you're thinking, oh, this isn't going well. You might get frustrated, and then it just becomes a bit of a negative experience. So, you know, the best coaches I've seen with younger players always have this. They always have energy, enthusiasm, and they got a fire and a glow about them. And more often than not, the players feed off of that. The second one, I've spoken to Chris and others a lot about this, is using language that they can relate to. So goes back to slide number 1, get to know your players. If they don't, like the girls, if they don't understand or watch football and they don't know football terminology that well, then I can't go in there and use that terminology. I need to go in there and use language that they understand. So to give you a perfect example, we were working on some 1v1s. So just simply trying to teach them that, can you take the ball past your opponent and closer to the goal? Or it might be that you broke away in a game and you've got the goalkeeper to beat. How do you do that? To get them excited about 1v1s, because that's not so much a large game, but get them excited about 1v1s, I had to change. So instead of calling the defender a defender, we created an animal. So I had the animal working across on a line. So we obviously come up with a crab, so you can only move sideways. So we had our players trying to get past the crab, then to try and score. So they created that into crab football. So it became a game. Great, they were involved in that. But honest to God, the energy and enthusiasm and willingness to have a go increased. I want to get past the crab. And then it was, I want to be the crab. Okay, well, if you got energy defending, you're going to defend more. Then I wanted to move the crab away from the line because I wanted to make it harder. So I asked them, all right, we got to change the animal. We can't be crabs anymore. We've gone past that stage. When I say stage, what I'm referring to there is games. So no doubt that they'll be playing games, and on the games there'll be stages, and everything's about getting to the next stage. So we're up to the next stage now. What's level 2? You know, how can we get the animal maybe coming towards you? So they might change it to a lion. So we had a lion, but then I was thinking, well, they're enjoying this so much. Why don't they beat the lion, then beat a crab, then try and score? And they thought that was amazing. So we had them run in to get balls now, coming over because they wanted to beat the lion, then they wanted to beat the crab, then they wanted to score. And I never had an issue of anybody that wanted to be a crab or a lion, because they always wanted to kind of be that animal. So we built a session through animals that helped me increase the challenge, which helped them learn. They didn't even know that they were learning. And I was just reinforcing the positive things that they did, whether they changed direction with the ball or whether they changed their speed with the ball. That was it. But the session was based around language of animals and around language of games in terms of levels, and they were involved in the process the whole time. So that's just an example of how you can be energetic, enthusiastic, using language that they can buy into, that they can relate to, involving them in the session design. And even in one-on-one, as long as you got a goal and you've got somebody attacking you, that is the game. My challenge then was obviously, like you probably all got, is challenge of space. And I just didn't want 2 players active. I wanted more. So we had multiple lions and multiple crabs set up and multiple goals. But I didn't have enough goals, so they just had to get the ball over a line. Just simplify and solve that problem. But more often than not, those sessions are the ones where the mums on the side were like, wow, they were into it today. I was like, yeah, they were being lions and crabs. They probably think I'm crazy, but you know, them seeing their daughters have fun and seeing their daughters be enthusiastic, they come back next week. And that's ultimately what those parents wanted, which comes back down to knowing the needs of the players in slide 1. So I really hope that I've given you something to think about. You know, a short presentation is not going to, you know, make any of us an amazing coach, but you know, if you can just think about these things and spend time of it before you jump to a nice shiny resource, or before you jump to YouTube and type in a great session, keep it focused around who's in front of you. Keep it focused around those human beings. Keep it real. You know, they're young people. They're playing sport because they want to play sport. They want to have fun. They want to be physically active. They've chosen football probably because there's goals and it's a team sport, and just make the most of these core things. And, you know, I'm a big believer that, you know, if the sessions are fun and enjoyable and energetic and enthusiastic, they're probably a good session. If it's a good session, they're probably coming back. And you will probably go home very happy yourself and feel that you're making a difference, because like I said, please don't underestimate how big of a difference you can make. So if you are coaching this year, good luck. I hope you have some fun with it. And I hope your players continue to love and enjoy the game, and I hope you do too. Thank you.